Okay, welcome back. We are going to start today with fluid statics. So, in the last lecture, I exposed you to the idea of a stress on a fluid, right. So, when a fluid moves, then it leads to certain surface forces, and we talked about what happens to the state of stress. Now, we take a special case where the fluid is stationary. Okay. So, that means what this implies is that by its very definition, because the fluid is stationary, it means there is no shear force. So, recall, fluid starts moving due to shear force. So, that means if I look at a fluid which is stationary, then I can only have a normal stress. There cannot be a shear stress. Let us call this pressure. And now I want to find out what happens to this pressure in this scenario. So, let us consider, so let us say this is the free surface of the fluid, and there is a fluid inside, and I am going to write down a frame of reference. So, this is x and this is z, and now what I am going to do is take an element of fluid in this. So, this is the element of fluid. Let me say this length is delta x and this height is delta z. Rho is the density of fluid. Let us say there is a pressure on this which I called as Pn, and there is a pressure here which I called Px, and on this face the pressure is Py. So, of course, these are distributed pressure, but I have just shown you with one arrow not to clutter this diagram. This is also going to have a weight. So, let me draw the weight of this fluid element. So, it is going to act through this point, and I could say that suppose L is the depth of the element inside the board. So, I am going to consider an element of depth L inside the blackboard. Then I could say the volume, the delta volume is delta x times delta z times L. And therefore, this force I could write down, the weight is simply rho times delta v and g. Okay. Let me call this as an angle theta. Okay. So, I am primarily interested in what happens to the value of the pressure on this normal surface of this wedge. So, let me do a force balance. So, x balance, and I will do a z balance. So, there is a force in this direction which is minus Px times the area, and the area would be simply delta Z times L. So that's the force in the negative x direction. The force in the positive x direction is because of this Pn. So I'm going to write this as plus Pn times, suppose I call this length as delta L. So this would be Pn times delta L times this L, and I am going to take the component of this. So this is theta, which means this is theta. So I am talking about L sine theta, and this is 0. So I have taken this force and the component of it in the x direction. All right, I can do a similar balance for the z direction, which is the vertical direction. So there is a force, a pressure acting on this force on this face, and that value is in the positive direction. So I am going to have plus Py times delta x times L, and then I have the weight. So that's in the negative direction. So that's minus rho delta x delta Z by 2. So that's actually the volume times L and a G in this. And then I would have to take the vertical component of this, which is again in the negative direction. So that would be minus Pn times delta L times L. I am sorry, this should be a small lowercase l, and of course a cosine theta. So this should be 0. So let me call this as equation 1 and this as equation 2. Okay. All right, what does equation 1 give me? So equation 1 implies that, maybe I will get rid of this, and I see minus Px delta Z plus Pn, there is a delta L, and for the sine theta I can write down this is delta Z by delta L equal to 0. So these cancel out, and this implies I have Pn equal to Px. Okay. Let's see what the equation 2 gives me. Equation 2 tells me that I have Py times delta x. So I am already going to cancel out this L, and minus rho delta x delta Z by 2 G, that is the second term, and then the last term is minus Pn delta L, and cosine theta from this triangle I could write as delta x by delta L. This is 0. So I could cancel out these delta L's. Similarly, I could cancel out the delta x here, 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 and therefore I get Py minus Pn is equal to rho delta Z G by 2. Now if I take an infinitesimal element, so limit delta x delta Z tends to 0 on this equation, then I get Py is equal to Pn. That means if I look at this fluid element, then these two pressure Px and Py, they are both equal to Pn, and therefore they also must be equal, and that is the famous Pascal's result. So essentially, let me summarize this for you, that so this is the result due to Pascal, which you have already looked at in your high school, and it says that in a stationary fluid, pressure is same in all directions. In other words, we could also say this is isotropic. So pressure is a very special quantity. So if I take a small fluid element, then pressure on all these faces are going to be equal. So that's a very important result. Please note that we have not proved this result for a fluid that is moving, okay, or which has different speeds at different points in time. So this result we have shown is proven only for a stationary fluid, but of course we know that this result is true for other situations also where the fluid is moving. Good. Now what I want to do next is, having shown that pressure is same in all directions, I want to find out what is the variation of pressure going to do. So suppose I have pressure that varies from one point in the fluid to the other, then what is the implication of that on the force that acts on the fluid? So we are going to talk about the pressure force on a fluid element. So I am going to set up a coordinate system and then consider a fluid element. So let me set up a coordinate system for you. So again we will take a right hand coordinate system. So let us say this is x, and so maybe I should this is z, x, y and z. And let me consider a fluid element. This is a fluid element. So this is the positive x phase, and at the back of it I see a negative x phase. Similarly, I have a positive y phase over here and a corresponding negative y phase, and so on. So I am going to allow pressure to vary with x, y and z. So I am going to say that pressure is actually a function of x, y and z. It could vary. All right. So suppose I look at the pressure at this point and I look at the pressure at this point, and the only difference between these 2 points are that they have different x, but y and z are the same. So I am going to assume that pressure on this face, which is normal to this face, is P. But on this face, the pressure is P plus del P by del x times dx, where this length is dx. Okay. Similarly, I could talk about a pressure on this face over here, and I could talk about a pressure on this face. Okay. In fact, I have made an error in the direction. As I showed you, pressure is inward, so this pressure should be like this, and I am sorry, this pressure should be inward. Pressure acts on the surface. Okay. So this pressure would be P, and this one I would like to call this as P plus del P by del y times dy, where this length is dy. Okay. And likewise I could do for the z direction, which is of course in this direction, but I will not clutter the figure. Okay. So I could talk about the net pressure in x direction on this fluid element. So please notice, because pressure acts normal to the surface, so in the x direction only these two faces contribute, no other face would contribute. Similarly, in the y direction only these two faces would contribute and not the other faces, and likewise for the z direction. So as far as the x direction is concerned, I would only like to take resultant over here, and I could write this as P plus delta P by del x times dx. So there is a negative sign here because it is acting in the negative x direction, times the area over here. So I would like to call this as dz. So this would become, the area as you can see is of this face is dz times dy. And then I have pressure on this face, and that is in the positive direction. So I have plus P, and now this is dy dz. Okay. So therefore, the net pressure that I have is these two terms will cancel out, and I am going to be left with minus del P by del x dx dy dz. This is the net pressure force in the x direction. Likewise, I could find out what happens in the other directions. So net force in, for example, the y direction, and that would be given as, I could again del P by del y dx dy dz. In fact, we could already see that from here. So if I compute the force because of this pressure over here, so it is this pressure times the area, and the area is dx times dz, right? And then I have another force because of this blue colored pressure on the lower surface. So part of it is going to cancel it out, and the remaining one I have written over here. Similarly, in z direction, this is going to be equal to minus del P by del z dx dy dz. Okay. So I have been now able to find out that on this fluid element, if there is a pressure that actually varies spatially, so it is varying at different points in the fluid, then what is it that leads to a force on a certain fluid element? Okay, so these are the three directions. So now I can write it down in terms of a vector. So I could say that d Fp is the net force on the fluid element due to pressure, and this I could write it as, in the vector notation, minus del P by del x I, that is in the x direction from here, Similarly, del P by del Y in the j direction and del P by del Z in the k direction times this dx, dy, dz. Okay. I could in fact write it as minus gradient of P dx, dy, dz. Okay. So, this is a very compact notation where I have already shown you what is meant by the gradient operator. So, it has three components which are listed over here. But this must be balanced. If it is not balanced, then it would cause this fluid element to move. Okay. So, suppose I have gravity. So, if I now write down the dFP as the pressure force per unit volume, then that is given as minus gradient of P, and I can get rid of this quantity here, which is essentially the volume of the element. All right. Next, what I can do is I can try to find out, do a force balance between, so observation 1. Net force depends on pressure gradient and not the pressure. Okay. So, this is a very important result, that the absolute value of the pressure is not so important. It is actually how the pressure is changing in the fluid that is more important. So, often we have this concept of absolute versus gauge pressure. So, if P is my absolute pressure, then I am going to define P gauge as P minus P atmosphere. This is the atmospheric pressure. So, often when you do fluid mechanics, then you would be interested more in the gauge pressure and not the absolute pressure. In fact, it is very interesting to note that Pg less than 0 would imply you have a vacuum, of course a partial vacuum. So, wherever you have a pressure which is lower than the atmospheric pressure, that means you have a partial vacuum. Of course, a perfect vacuum would be when your absolute pressure is 0, and that would imply that your gauge pressure is negative of the atmospheric pressure, and we all know that it is very difficult to achieve. You would have to have an absolute 0 temperature for that, and so on and so forth. Great.